Howdy, it's Michelle here from foodslang.com, and what a week it's been. Unbelievable. But I'm making this video because, of course, this week we've got another episode coming out, and it is the third installment in the series that I'm doing on food additives. If you've been listening in, then you know the first episode on food additives was the number one food additive, which is sugar cane. So if you haven't listened to that, go check it out. The second episode in the series was primarily on phosphates that a lot of meat producers are using in our meat. So you should definitely go check that out. And this week is third in the series, and it's actually not a food additive that gets added in the manufacturing or production of our food. It's kind of a silent additive that is used kind of in the growing stage. And I'm going to tell you what it is in a second. But before I tell you that, let me just say that this week, if you're connected with me on the socials, then you know that I tweeted out a story that was posted on the Center for Food Safety website. And it was a victory that federal court banned Monsanto's Dicamba pesticide. So yay. It was a big victory for, us, I guess. And if you listen to my episode Yo Soy Peaches in season 1, I talked a lot about Dicamba and Dicamba drift, or Dicamba and Dicamba drift. You say tomato, I say tomato, whatever. The point is that this pesticide and the use of the pesticide has been quite toxic to the environment, to wildlife, to other crops that are not genetically modified. So you can listen to that episode and really find out the details. But, and it's not a perfect solution because there are older versions of Dicamba. There are, people who are still using it, farmers that use it, because they actually use genetically modified Monsanto seed. And, it's a pesticide that prohibits the growth of broadleaf weeds, right? So that was kind of a victory, but it's complicated. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a win, small win. And then today I saw on the New York Times website that Monsanto, again, settled several lawsuits for $10 billion regarding their glyphosate or Roundup Ready product. And oh my goodness, another win, right? So, if you don't know about glyphosate or Roundup Ready, I'm sure you've heard, there was one particular case of a man who was using the product and actually got Hodgkin's lymphoma, I believe. But that kind of started the lawsuit against them, and so victory number 2. So this week's episode is on an herbicide called Atrazine, and it's actually produced by a different company, Syngenta, and there was a scientist who did a lot of studying and testing on Atrazine, specifically testing it on amphibians. If you've heard of Tyrone Hayes, then you know his work, and he's the one who kind of, figured out how Atrazine was impacting amphibians and aquatic wildlife. And it's really fascinating because it's not just impacting the wildlife, it's impacting human beings too. And we talk about that in this week's podcast. So I hope that you listen in, because there are, it's complicated, right? There are reasons why farmers and people who grow food on a large commercial scale, why they have to use pesticides and herbicides. Because when you're growing crops in several thousand acres, right, it's a business, right? You're trying to sell your crops. You're trying to make as much money as you can on your crops. You don't want crop failure, so you want to be able to ensure that the crops will grow. And so that's why a lot of farmers have to use herbicides and pesticides to prohibit the growth of broadleaf weeds. so that they can maximize their crop. So it's complicated. It's not a perfect solution. If you're growing 3,000 acres of a monocrop, you're going to have issues if you don't use some of these things, right? So it's imperfect, but I think what is most important is being able to have people use it responsibly and really, if that's even possible, right? So it really only takes, in order to get certified to use these pesticides and herbicides, these specialty products, you have to take a test, that's, you have to sign up for the class, right, which is about $50, and then you get a certification, which is about $40. So for under $100, you can become one of the people who is allowed to spray these things in the environment for wherever they're being sprayed, which is, these two chemicals, they're very toxic, and they're being sprayed on food crops, they're being sprayed on golf courses, they're being sprayed on sugar cane, they're being sprayed on lots and lots of things, on people's front lawns, for crying out loud. Roundup was used for, people who have front lawns, they spray it. So it's very complicated, but it's really important to understand the dynamics here and to really celebrate the win, right? Every small win counts, especially when it comes to our food supply chain, when it comes to the food that we're eating, when it comes to our wildlife and our environment and the water that we drink every day, or the water that is in our water tables underneath, the ground. And in our air, Dicamba is notorious for its Dicamba drift, right? So it's floating through the air for miles and for days. So it can impact non-genetically modified crops, which is part of the problem. So I hope that you listen in to this week's episode on Atrazine. We will be, talking about it on the socials. I hope that you connect with me there at Foods Lane. And I would love for you to sign up for the newsletter. I promise I won't spam you. I really just send out emails when an episode comes out, so you get exclusive podcast updates. And you can sign up for that on foodslane.com. And, in the meantime, let's continue the conversation. Let's spread the word, because these are toxic. And the science proves it. It's not just me sitting over here talking about, things I just find on the internet. But there's science to actually back it up. And, of course, a lot of these companies don't want us to know about it, because it could mean that they won't make as much money as they could if we didn't know. But we need to know, because it's a health and public safety issue. So there's that. Alrighty, well, in the meantime, in between time, remember to eat clean, eat healthy, and love your food. And I'll see you on the other side of the plate. Oh, and if you would be so kind, subscribe to this YouTube channel. It would really help spread the word. It would really help me out. And share the video with someone that you care about. Okay? Talk to you next week. Have a good one, and I'll see you on the other side of the plate. Ciao.